Hi, to the people who know me, welcome. I'm finally here on this platform instead of Instagram. For the people who don't know me, I'm Sam Lamb, and today I'm here to talk about a movie. That movie being Oppenheimer. I will be honest with you right off the bat. I have recorded this video maybe several times because I just didn't know how to really structure what I was going to talk about. And so to keep it simple and to keep my head from exploding, I've structured it from story, sound, visuals, and overall message. And a few things sprinkled here and there. It's going to be kind of still all over the place because if you know me, nothing I do is structured, and I'm kind of a mess. Anyways, um, so to begin this talk, I want to talk about the overall story of this film. And the story of Oppenheimer is a quite interesting film, quite interesting thing to be adapted for film because for a film that is mostly just white dudes talking in a room, it's very captivating and very interesting to watch because they also have Christopher Nolan did a very great job of kind of keeping the audience captivated in what's being talked about and some of like the main worries that could happen while making an atomic bomb. One of the theories that's brought up by one of the scientists early in the film is that by making an atom bomb, they could set off a chain reaction that can basically light up the whole atmosphere and like evaporate the earth basically, which for like a bunch of scientists that are very smart, you can basically see how worried they are. And as a person that's not really much of a scientist himself, um I liked how Christopher Nolan used visuals to help tell what would happen. Most of the time when they're talking about molecules or like atoms and stuff, they show a lot of visual representation of those like smashing in together with stuff and doing like really crazy cool visuals throughout, like space and like Earth and stuff like that. It was really cool. Like for the atoms or like stuff smashing together, apparently they used like golf balls and like painted them like neon colors and were like slamming them against the walls to make like sparks and stuff. Apparently they did some really cool stuff to get the visuals of this film, which honestly, visuals is like my favorite thing along with sound when it comes to film sometimes. So seeing stuff like that is really cool to me. The other thing that I want to talk about story wise is the amount of characters is a lot. So unless you know the story of Oppenheimer, it might not be too difficult. But I found it myself as a normal viewer of film. It was very difficult to keep up with every single person that was in this film. Um, yeah, it was just very confusing at some points. There was like one time where they introduce a character for like 2 seconds, and then they reveal like at the very end of the film that he was very important, and I was like, I don't even remember what he looks like. And like I said, Christopher Nolan uses visuals, so every time that they talk about a character that isn't there, they'll sometimes show a picture of that character, which is kind of nice. I appreciate that as someone that has short-term memory loss. But yeah, anyways, this movie opens up, and I was probably like 10 minutes into the film when I realized that this movie has a lot of symbolism. A lot of symbolism. I mean, a lot of them that I don't even want to mention because it's something that is just so there's so many like just things that I caught and picked up on, but I just don't want to talk about it because it's so much is kind of wild. Some of them aren't even symbols, it's just more like reoccurring themes. Like one of the reoccurring themes throughout this movie, and you've probably heard in the trailer. Yeah, it's in the trailer actually. Is the stomping, like the, and it gets like really loud. Um, it's revealed of what that is exactly because all of the noises that you hear in this film mean something, and like as much as to the stomping and even rain is like kind of a heavy like symbol in this film, which is really cool. One of them I want to talk about, even though I said I didn't want to talk about symbolism, is the sounds of rain and raindrops in general. Throughout this movie, And even in the beginning of the movie, we see our character Oppenheimer looking at rain, just raindrops. And on first watch, about like 10 minutes into the film, I didn't think anything of it. But then it kept popping up again and again, like rain, just rain everywhere. And even I noticed in one scene that, like, when he was inside a building while it was raining outside, you could still visibly hear the rain, like, completely, audio wise. Like, you could hear him, but you could hear the rain like it was inside, even though he's inside of a building. Because you know what rain sounds like outside of a building, but it sounded like the rain was inside the building. And even the end of the movie, there's rain. So from what I picked up on, I don't really like doing too much research about films before I talk about them because I want to see how right I am. Even I could be completely wrong, but what I picked up on, and I wrote it down right here on my paper that I'm using as a script, that the rain kind of symbolized his dread, and we pick up on it first because he talks about how he was homesick when he was at school, and he was looking at the rain when he was talking about this. And when he was homesick, he looked at the rain and he watched it. And it's brought up again in the middle. There's a few times where it's brought up, but the three moments I'm talking about are the very beginning, the middle-ish, and the end. And so if you don't want any sort of spoilers, I would click off. But in the middle portion, Oppenheimer tries to justify using the atom bomb against the Japanese people. And in that scene, you can visibly hear rain. And basically is trying to defend himself against a bunch of people that are like, hey, Hitler's dead. We don't need to use the bomb. Because originally they were talking about using the bomb on the Nazis. But since Hitler's dead, and at that point the Nazis basically were kind of done for, they basically kind of just, they were like, well, we don't need the bomb anymore. He's gone. Why do we need to use it? And Oppenheimer kind of just tries to justify, like, hey, if we don't use it, someone else is going to do it before us, and then it'll be over for us. And the last time that rain is used is Oppenheimer talking to Albert Einstein about how he was afraid that he might have ended the world and that he thinks he just did. And in that scene, it was very, very, like, obvious that it was symbolism because it shows Oppenheimer sitting there with his hat, and you can see drops of water on his head going down onto his hat. And it's like a clear, crystal blue day outside, and apparently it's raining on his head. And in the pond, you can see raindrops. And I just find, like, small stuff like that to be super interesting because he even sees that when they're drawing up the map of where they're dropping the atom bomb. Because one of Oppenheimer's greatest fears, and it was explained very early in the film, is that he was afraid that this would lead to an arms race. Because at the time, there was theory that there was a Russian spy. And that if that's true, then the Russians will know how to make their own bomb. Thus, there was a fear that, hey, we're going to start another war at this point if we don't figure this out. And so we see this moment where Oppenheimer's looking at this map and you see these little drops of rain. And stuff like that made me kind of giggy, ooh, I don't know. It was super cool. I thought it was really cool. And like I said, stomping isn't really much of a symbolism in this movie. It's more like just a moment that is like something taken from a moment that is very interesting and kind of awful to watch. That moment being, actually no, I'm not going to talk about that yet because we're going to get to sounds in a bit. But overall, the story itself is very interesting and it's also not told in order. One of the things that you'll notice right off the, pretty much like very soon into the film, is that it's not told in order. One of the interesting facts about this film that I've learned is that all of the scenes that are in color are told through the perspective of Oppenheimer in the script. And if you don't know what that is supposed to really mean, when writing a script, I've learned, you basically are not really supposed to put it in the first person. You're supposed to put it in the third person. And so when you're watching this film, you have to keep in mind that in the script, they have made Oppenheimer the first person. So when in the script, like if in Oppenheimer's point of view, it will say like, I walked to the store. But in black and white, it's not told through Oppenheimer's perspective. It's told through a different perspective. And yeah, stuff like that. A very interesting way of putting it. Even the end script of this movie, most of it's in first person because it's told through the eyes of Oppenheimer, which I gotta respect for Christopher Nolan because the one thing that I saw people complaining about in this film was that we don't really get to. There's not a scene of the atomic bomb being dropped on Hiroshima, which I think I agree with. I agree with this, and a lot of people do agree is a little excessive if they did that because it's not about, as much as this sounds really messed up, it's not about that. It's about the perspective of Oppenheimer and how it was back on the homeland. And yeah, back on the homeland, on the base, people were celebrating, happy, and everything. But Oppenheimer wasn't really happy at all. It was actually the complete opposite, which leads on to another scene where he gives a victory party speech about the bombing of Hiroshima. And that scene's also super interesting because basically everything after the bomb dropping, we kind of get these visions of Oppenheimer kind of having the world kind of, I can only describe as his anxiety. And it will, like, things will, like, sounds will get muffled, stuff will get super bright, like as bright as like when the bomb was dropped, which I found kind of interesting. There's like several moments after the bomb is dropped where like he'll get like really anxious and like he'll just start seeing bright lights, kind of like the bomb being dropped, like the exact same bright over like taking lights, which is very interesting choice in the film, and I appreciate because I think not. I think making Oppenheimer a complete mastermind villain for this film would have been kind of ridiculous, anyways, because this is a man that was for science. He wasn't like an evil human being. I mean, the one thing that I could admit is that before watching this film, I remember seeing a long time ago in like a history class the clip of him saying, you know, I have become death, the destroyer of worlds. I was like, oh, this man must have been a real heartthrob. He must have been a real nice fella. But this movie doesn't try to like justify or make him like completely evil, but it does just tell his story. And I appreciate that point of view, especially with like the whole thing about Hiroshima bombing. It was just excessive. Like it was stuff that we just stuck to his point of view and Robert Downey Jr.'s point of view throughout some of the film because the black and white scenes are through his point of view. Also, another interesting thing that I thought was quite cool is that some of the facts that this movie just told and some of the things that Christopher Nolan kind of hints at is very interesting. One of the things that is told through the story is how Oppenheimer had an affair with his wife with a woman named, I don't remember her name, I'm sorry, but he had an affair with a woman, and basically, spoiler, about a quarter way through the movie, she does kill herself, and that's what is shown to us, is that she drowned herself in a tub. But apparently it was first believed that she was killed by the US to basically keep Oppenheimer in check, because the problem with this lady is that she had communist ties, and obviously around this time in the world the big C word was very, very like bad, and so it was believed that by her brother that the US killed her so that Oppenheimer would stay focused on making the bomb. So in that scene, they show Lawrence Pugh, who plays the woman, drowning herself with her hands, and then one scene they show her getting drowned with someone else's hand holding her head down in the water. Now, when I first watched this with my girlfriend, we were both like, what does that mean? Did she not kill herself? Did she kill herself? And I look it up, and yeah, it's kind of believed by her brother and a few people, in a good amount of people, that she was killed. She didn't kill herself because her note wasn't also signed. And apparently that she took pills, and that, yeah, her suicide note wasn't signed. And I find that extraordinarily interesting because most films would probably just be like, pick one and go with it. But Christopher Nolan decided to kind of show both and keep it ambiguous. And I think when we're shown scenes like that, it's kind of like what Oppenheimer is imagining, because we have to keep in mind that the scenes that are in color are told through his perspective. And so when he figures out that she died, it shows him thinking about that moment, and it shows him thinking about her being killed, which I just found very quite interesting, to say the least. Moving on. One thing that I enjoy a lot in this film is the visuals and sound. Now, one thing that you might not know is that Christopher Nolan gets a lot of flack for his sound in his films, because yeah, sometimes it can be very just bad for the ears, you could say. I love the sounds that he uses in this film, because one of them is stomping. And stomping in the beginning is kind of used like throughout the entire film, basically. And we're not revealed what the stomping is until the bomb is dropped. And it's the stomping of people getting excited for him to come out after the bombing of Hiroshima. And this was basically a celebration of the bomb being dropped. And it's the sound of people just stomping in the piers. And in this scene, I find it quite interesting, because this is kind of like the big example of his anxiety taking over after the bomb was dropped. We hear the stomping, we see his vision kind of shake and get blurry, and we hear just a lot of interesting things in this scene. And I think this possibly might be one of my favorite scenes, along with the ending of this film, which the ending of this film kind of tells a message that is very bleak, to say the least. So in this scene, we get Oppenheimer walking out, and this celebration, and he goes on stage and he starts talking, and you start to hear nothing. You see these people like all celebrating and being happy, but then you start being shown these other people, and some people are crying, some people are like swearing, getting angry, and then the sound cuts away, so you can't hear anyone like screaming, clapping, or anything like that. You can just hear Oppenheimer talking. And it kind of gave me chills a little bit, because in that scene, they cut the noise of people like celebrating with a blood-curdling scream. Like, a loud one. And it caught me off guard so bad, and it kind of just got me on edge a little bit. And I don't know if I've said this yet, but this movie did a really good job at doing something that not a lot of films do, and that's filling me with dread. Like, very, very, a huge amount of dread. And that terrifies me a lot, because dread's not a great feeling. But in that scene, he's just talking and you don't hear anything. And then the bright lights come out of nowhere again, like it's getting like the bomb was dropped. Like, it's bright lights and he can't see anything. And then we cut back to him walking back into the room. And it's like he's kind of stuck in this loop of just talking to these people, and he just doesn't know what to say. Like, he's just staring at these people screaming, crying, and stuff, and he just doesn't know what to say. And while he's walking out, you know, he sees another form of symbolism, which is really cool. We see a World War II soldier making out with a woman under the bleachers. Now, when I first saw this, I was like, okay, sure. But this is a subtle jab at the fact that this is the era where people started just having babies. I forgot what it's exactly called. I apologize, because I'm not really much of a historian. I think it's called the baby boom. The baby boom, I think. Historian, help. I think it's the baby boom. The 20th century baby boom, I think. I could be wrong. But it is a slight jab at the fact that after World War II, people started having a lot of kids. And I thought that is so interesting, because it's a visual. It's not like telling you that. It's just a visual jab at what is to come. Sorry, I'm getting a little coffee. I've talked a lot now. But Yeah, no, that scene might be my favorite, along with the ending scene. That scene just overall, like, kind of was it was just amazingly shot. And a little fun fact about that scene: there is also a part where it shows a woman having her face peeled off from like the bomb, and that woman is played by Christopher Nolan's daughter. And then Christopher Nolan came out and said that in an interview that he likes putting his kids in these apocalyptic movies because it gives him a reminder of how serious how serious the moment is, which is kind of cool and interesting because yeah, for a film like this, I mean, it is like, I guess it can be set as a reminder that like this is real. Like, this isn't The Dark Knight, this isn't Interstellar, this is a movie about more than thousands of people dying and how one man is kind of responsible for that in a way. And I think overall, like, that, just some of the things that Christopher Nolan does in his films are very just minor but very, very cool. But the what else do I want to talk about? Did I talk about visions? I kind of talked about visuals. Some of the visuals in this movie are very beautiful. I saw this on an IMAX movie screen, so the fact that that this film just looked as gorgeous as it was, I'm kind of excited to own this on DVD because I do own the Dark Knight trilogy on DVD, so I'm kind of excited to own this one on DVD just to watch it again because, like I said, this film is just filled with so much to the brim that I don't think I could talk about it all. It's already been 20 minutes of me talking, so, like, it's kind of hard to just talk about everything in this film. And I'm not really much a professional at this. Like I said, this is my first time I'm doing it on YouTube, so I feel like I have to have some sort of form of some form of matureness on this, especially when a movie like this isn't really a fun movie to talk about, like a funny movie to talk about. This is kind of, yeah, it's serious. But I want to talk about the overall message of this film because Christopher Nolan kind of does a thing with his films. And one of those things is kind of have like kind of a looming message, kind of like at the end, like a last like little reminder of like what to be thinking about when leaving the film. For The Dark Knight, spoilers if you haven't watched The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight has like this idea that like a hero sacrificing his image to make another person a hero, right? And Interstellar is about love. It's about like spending time with like your loved ones and how, you know, we don't have much time in a world like this. And Oppenheimer kind of ends on more of like a question, and also with that brings kind of like a very bleak and kind of disturbing view of where we are today in today's world. And that being the talk about nuclear arms and bombs. Yeah, scary stuff. Because, yeah, we're not talking about Batman here. We're not talking about Interstellar. We're talking about stuff that happens in real life. Like, this is something that happened to a bunch of people. And this is a real thing that happened. I've said it several times now. I already know it. But it ends with the idea that Oppenheimer goes to talk to Albert Einstein, and he goes, "Do you remember when I brought you that equation and I was afraid that we might have destroyed the world?" And don't quote me on this because this isn't exactly what he said. But Albert Einstein goes, "Yes, what of it?" And Oppenheimer says, "I think we just ended the world." And then Albert Einstein frowns and walks away as we cut to these images of bombs being dropped, basically like bombs being fired into the air, the earth turning to ash. Yeah, this is the end of the film. Like, it ends with something that obviously the earth doesn't turn into ash, but it just shows like scenes of like the earth having bombs being dropped on it and stuff. And I think it does an amazing job at telling where we are today. Because this is a real fear that people have. This is a real fear I have. Like, the idea of just a bomb dropping on us and that would be the end of it is scary. Especially at the type of weapons we have nowadays. And like we said, that's kind of thanks to our boy Oppie That's kind of thanks to him. Like, and so when you look at like the overall bearing like impact he has on the future of the world, you look back at it and you watch the film and you're like, wow, that's kind of scary. And yeah, it's a bleak it's a bleak view of the film because, like I said, it's something that we have to fear and deal with to this day. I mean, a few years ago, there was fear that China was gonna nuke us. Do you remember that? Because I remember that. Not China, North Korea. I'm so sorry. Jesus. Well, North Korea. You know what I'm saying. Anyways, there was that fear that North Korea was going to bomb us one day. And it was pretty dang serious. I was kind of scared about that. And, like, it was all over the news and stuff. And, yeah, it's this idea that, like, this is stuff we deal with to this day. And that we have to just deal with forever. Because I don't know if you've noticed, the idea of nuclear bombs is still around. And everyone has one now. And, spoiler alert, not all the bombs are like the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima. Sorry. Mispronounced. But, yeah, when we look at the advancement of our technology when it comes to bombs, it's kind of scary. I don't know what kind of... I know that we have advancements that are, like, apparently, like, 100 times bigger than the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. So imagine a bomb like that being dropped now. Something that could take out all of Vermont or something like that. Something crazy like that. But overall, like, that message at the end of the film kind of just left me quiet, like, silent for a bit. Because just how they show it and how, like, the representation and how the song that they chose to play it, which is a reminder, if you haven't listened to the soundtrack, you definitely should. You go to the Oppenheimer soundtrack, and I actually have a list of a few songs you can check out. You listen to Can You Hear the Music, Trinity, and The Destroyer of Worlds. So the scene I'm talking about, it has The Destroyer of Worlds playing, which, if you listen to that song and listen to the end of it, you could see why it's kind of picked. It's just this swelling mass of music, and it just keeps going until it just ends. And then credits. Which, like I said, just filled me with, like, a very empty feeling. Like, a film that is 99% of people just talking kind of made me feel just a little icky at the end. Like, wow, I can't wait to go home and talk about this one. But, that's kind of it, what I want to say. I would really like to hear anyone else talk about it, in the comments or something like that, or anyone that has an opinion about it. I overall loved this film. I thought this was an enjoyable film. Really left a really kind of empty feeling in my chest a little bit, and overall, just I think is a story that needed to be told, and I found it quite interesting, and that's kind of it of what I have to say. I don't have a lot of knowledge about the outside of the film yet. I have a little bit, but, like, not too much, and I'm not really much a professional, so I'll just leave it there. But I'm hoping that people are still watching and made it to the end. If you did watch all this, I thank you. I also love you, and I'm glad that you checked this video out, because I don't know if I want to continue doing movie reviews. It's just been kind of iffy lately, and with my whole outside life right now, it's kind of hard to enjoy doing this, and it kind of upsets me to say that, but I just don't know how long I can keep up with this, you know? I would love to keep doing this. It's just that I've had a real tough time this summer, and just outside of school. It's been pretty stressful, so if you show your support in the comments, that would be pretty cool. But anyways, I'm gonna head out. I'm probably gonna eat some ice cream now. Yeah. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you next time.